Dr. Daniel Yergin is joining me now. He is the Vice Chairman of IHS. Dr. Yergin, thank you so much for taking the time. Looking at the oil price at the moment, you gave a very realistic outlook about the state of the global market at the moment here. But what can companies and producers do in this low price environment?
Well, for companies, of course, it's really battening down the hatches. It's dealing with being prudent and realizing that the pressures are going to continue, and that means a contraction for some companies. It means, unfortunately, we're seeing a shrinking of labor forces when a couple of years ago people said we never want to see the labor force shrink again. And so those kind of pressures. The other is in terms of the relationship between countries and companies. Countries are going to have to be more realistic to understand that companies are going to be more selective and careful with how they spend the money. And then there are things you can do in terms of your business. And one of the big things that really at IHS we're very focused on, because we have both the energy business and a standards business, is standardization. The 400 top companies have 2.1 million standards, and modernizing those, moving from special standards to more general ones, analyzing them, is one way to actually have some very substantial savings. And that's the pressure on the industry now, to apply your technology and your efforts to managing your costs.
Now we look back on your book, The Prize, and the two characters there are playing out again, supply and demand. But this time it's obviously supply that's the main character at the moment. And again, it looks like that's what we're going to see for the next few years.
Well, I think so. I mean, it is, we had almost a 10-year period when demand was the dominant character and called the shots, and now the tables are turned and now it's supply, and it's this buildup of supply. And a very critical part of it is what's happened in the United States, this extraordinary growth of shale oil, which really took much of the industry, much of the world by surprise.
And again, that was probably down to the efficiencies that were put into the market, the innovation that was brought into the market.
Yeah,
and in a way, it's the sad result of the smart guys in this business.
Well, it is, and it's so interesting that it really goes back to one person who I write about in The Quest, who was just convinced for about 20 years you could do this, and people said you can't make it happen, and he kept pushing it in his company and made it happen, and this breakthrough. Now, if you look at the impact of the shale revolution, you can see the impact on the oil price today, and you can also see the impact in terms of the natural gas market and LNG market. Now, of course, the other side of the equation is demand is still a player, and demand's player is playing in the form of a weaker global economy.
And again, that weaker global economy, we're looking at what, 2.5% growth, something like that?
We would expect 2.5 to 3%, but with a downside risk to it.
And that's something people really don't want to be looking at right now. Looking at China, a lot of demand was driven from China there. Things are not looking as good as they used to be, but still, there's still decent growth there. But can it hold up?
Yeah, well, we expect that we'll see about 350,000 barrel a day growth from China, lower than it had been over the period since 2000. Interestingly, even though the economy is 2.5 times bigger than it was at the beginning of this century, and that reflects the shift in the economy, and that in particular, part of China, the industrial part of China, let's face it, is in a recession.
Looking at the other emerging markets, I mean, we're seeing a bit of weakness in the emerging markets really in the last
More than a bit of weakness. I mean, that's the problem, and the thing to worry about is this nexus of a slowing China and these emerging markets. Look at Brazil, look at Africa, all these countries that depended upon commodity markets. Look at Russia's special situation, but still its economy declining by about 5%.
So where's the bright sparks in this market? Where's the hope? Is it looking long term? Is that what we just have to do?
It's hard to look and say what's the next China, what's going to have that impact. But the hope is actually the strength of, in particular, the U.S. economy, and it's a kind of a world of two stories, because the U.S. economy is actually looking better, and we'll probably see, for the first time in many years, the Federal Reserve raising interest rates on the notion that the economy is getting stronger.
Now, the OPEC ministers will meet in just a few weeks, in early December, for the final meeting of the year. Is there anything really they can do?
Well, it looks at this point, things can always change, but it looks like sort of rollover is the name of the game, which is really do nothing right now, or just continue to do what they're doing, and that means a global market that's really a market share market rather than a managed market. Finally,
we're here in Abu Dhabi. Of course, this is a very, very busy time here. The conference is very busy, the exhibition is busy. There's certainly energy in the market in terms of people are interested here. It's a very urgent time, I suppose, in the market. What did you feel from the conference, and in terms of your contribution to the conference and the feedback that you've got here in Abu Dhabi?
Well, I think that's what strikes me about Abu Dhabi is the steadiness, and in a sense the relative calm and and realistic confidence that you don't feel in other countries, and that Abu Dhabi is in a position to look to the future. And one of the things is I talked about this, actually the study that we just done with the Abu Dhabi Chamber of Commerce, which on an economic performance index actually rated, and this was using criteria of the International Monetary Fund, rated Abu Dhabi actually at the top in terms of how it's performing and evolving. And so, I think Abu Dhabi is really a leader, and every day it becomes more of a leader.
The conference here is among one of the biggest in the world, and really bringing in players, international players like yourself. You have your own big conference, Sarah Week, of course, as well. But again, the input into this conference and the exhibition, the players are still here. Is it important that now they're coming together, maybe at this time of year, really to discuss?
I think, the scale of this conference, the exhibits that's here, the content, the number 650 papers and speakers is really a testament to that this industry, whether prices are up, down, looks to the future, and that this is really a meeting place for the world industry. And when on my way here, I was in Japan, and these CEOs of companies would say, "Oh, I'll see you at ADIPEC," and it's just that this is a place where people have to be, and I think at a time like this, maybe they have to be here even more.
Dr. Daniel Yergin, thank you so much for joining ADIPEC TV.